Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Saturday morning, 32 minutes up past the hour of 10 a.m. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a wonderful night. It was a rainy morning, a bit of a cold weather, but the sun is coming out, and I think we'll be okay for the rest of the day in terms of our weather. But yeah, I hope you did enjoy yourselves last night. We did witness some Premier League action from match day 31 in the opener between AFC Bournemouth and Manchester United. So, and this beautiful morning, we'll be reviewing what did transpire in that game, and then we'll also get to look at the claims in that one, in regards to penalties and questionable decisions and things like that. But so this morning, there's some troubling news coming through from the course of Ugandan football. This is according to Ugandan football commentator Peter Otai, who says Red Devil were involved in an accident after the Express Uganda Cup, the Express loss in the FOFA Uganda Cup yesterday. 3 people, including the club CEO, are among the dead. So very, very troubling and unfortunate news coming through as of this morning in terms of Ugandan football. We would want to take a moment and commiserate with those that have lost loved ones, those that have sustained injuries. We pray that they are not as bad, and we pray for your quick recovery. Some injuries are so bad that they render people lame, and I think that's one of the growing facts or parts of life when you have to, let's say, you know, uh, live on as a lame person, especially in your adulthood. When when you're accustomed in life to doing things your way, doing things by yourself, and then something like that happens, we know how life changing that can be. So really, in that context, in that sort of sense, we do want to send our sympathies to all those that were involved in the road carnage in that week, because the Uganda Cup has been ongoing. I think last I checked, was it at the round of 16 or something about thereabout. So yeah, anyways, that's that. As unfortunate as it is, one of the worst things about life is that when you lose somebody and you're there all literally by yourself, thinking life has taken the worst turn ever, the worst thing to come the worst thing to come to reality with is how the rest of life seems or appears not to care, that other people are moving on with their lives like nothing happened to you. But it's very unfortunate, but it's the nature of life. So, anyways, good morning, everyone. For those of you that are just joining us, Robert Kesakos is my name. I hope you're having a wonderful morning. Yesterday, we did witness Manchester United share the spoils in a 2-all draw with AFC Bournemouth. That means Andon Iraola has yet to lose to Manchester United, both as a player and as a manager. For those of you that care to remember, he did play against Manchester United back in 2012 when Manchester United crashed out of the UEFA Champions League. They did meet Athletic Bilbao in the UEFA Europa League, and they were beaten home and away, I think by 3 goals to 2 and by 2 goals to 1. That is at San Mamés and Old Trafford. That Athletic Bilbao side that were under the charges of Marcel Bielsa, Andoni Iraola was a player in that team that had Xavi Hernandez, Xavi Hernandez. It had players like Susieta, Ander Herrera, Ikamunain, and things like that. So really, you for those of you that do remember that team, it was very, very Fernando Llorente, Ibai Gomez. Those were some of the players that were in that team. For those of you that I remember. So when they beat Man United home and away, of course, ever since then, he's managed Bournemouth through 6 games in the Premier League. He's won I think 4 and drawn 2. I think he's won 2 and drawn 4. So that's Andoni Iraola for you. Looks like, if anything, he's never going to lose to Manchester United. So really, good morning, Pedri. How are you doing, my brother? I hope you're doing okay. I can see your comment. You said breaking news. Guinea has filed an official complaint about the 1974 AFCON being awarded to Morocco after Morocco walked off the pitch for 15 minutes. Guinea was arguing that they should win it instead. Just wow. Now, the AFCON that you're talking about is the one of 1976, because that's when Morocco won that competition, and it's the only time they did go on to win it. So we've been hearing those reports that Guinea wanted to launch an appeal in regards to that 1976 AFCON final, because indeed Morocco walked off the pitch, so in protest. But I mean, like I said the other day, CAF with that decision to strip Senegal of their AFCON title and award it to Morocco just opened the can of worms for African football. When you think about the wider implications of that decision, Jesus Christ. For example, betting companies that, for people that, so in other words, if you had placed a bet for Morocco to win that game, then the betting company owes you money. That's what basically it implies. And if you had won money from the betting company on Senegal winning, whether after extra time or whatever the verdict, then you, under normal circumstances, would be owing that betting company money. But that's all on the side. The decision that was taken, albeit they did follow the rules, have been led to believe or to understand that the referee's decisions are meant to be ultimate in terms of the game when the game is officiated and it's brought to a logical conclusion. It's not like the game was ended prematurely. We even went for extra time and we played the entirety of the 30 minutes. So even the Senegal were at fault for walking away for 17 minutes. Yeah, in the end, the game was played and concluded. And then those reduced penalties on people bringing lasers in the pitch, on the ball boys, being involved in browse of a towel, that's not the work description, Anyways, so just know African football is being painted with a very, very black paint or charcoal at a time when the walls were beginning to being washed clean, if I could use the phrase. So that's that. Anyways, to digress back to Manchester United. So Andoni Iraola there is yet to lose a game of football to Manchester United, both as a player and as a manager. So I was telling you, in 2012, for those of you that remember, that 2012 team that went on to lose to Atletico de Madrid in the finals that were played that year is the kind of team that we are talking about. Radamel Falcao was quite a player at the time, I think, and the likes of Klaas-Jan Huntelaar at Schalke 04, who finished with 10 goals in that competition, while Falcao was the top scorer with 12. So very, very beautiful season. So that's the team under which Andoni Iraola played with in terms of facing Manchester United, and they did not lose. They won the game home and away. So yeah, he has a very, very good record against Manchester United. So yesterday was an extension of that. However, the game wasn't without its shenanigans, because according to Manchester United fans, they should have been awarded a penalty right before Bournemouth. They themselves were awarded a penalty on the other side for Harry Maguire's pull on Evan Nilsson being the last man, he was given matching orders. He was given a straight red card. So there's an argument for Manchester United fans to make that. Prior to that, Amadou Diallo had been brought down in the area with the pool, and the referee decided to wave that away. Now, the beauty of it, whether you agree or disagree with the referee's decision, is we cannot debate on what the referee saw, because he was right there clearly watching the moment play out as Amadou Diallo went to the turf. So, but he decided not to award the penalty. Now, meanwhile, Man United had already been awarded in that a penalty in the same game, and that's not to say that they shouldn't have been awarded another if they did deserve it. So, but the game was goalless in halftime. Manchester United, I thought, were by far the better team in the opening half. They created the better chances, even though I think Ran and Marcus Tavernier from the free kick had tested Seny Lomans. On the other side, George Petrovic had been called into action by Amadou Diallo, Bruno Fernandes, and I think a couple of other attempts that went on target from Manchester United. But in the second half, I thought Bournemouth looked much better. They looked a more improved side. Players like Alex Scott, players like Ryan Christie, who scored the equalizer after Bruno Fernandes had scored a penalty, following Gimenez's pull on Matthias Cunha to bring him down in the area. And then the referee, that was Stuart Atwell, awarded a penalty, which Bruno Fernandes stepped up and took brilliantly, sending the goalkeeper in the opposite direction. So it was 1-0. 6 minutes later, Ryan Christie scored a brilliant goal to make it 1-1. And then before, I think this is before, was it after? So anyways, 4 minutes later, Manchester United score, and this was James Healy's own goal from a set piece, even though Harry Maguire had woodwinked us into thinking he is the one that had actually scored in the manner in which he celebrated with Diego Dalot, but he did not have a touch of that ball. Anyways, it was an own goal 4 minutes later that gave Man United the 2-1 lead at the time. And then Alex Scott with a banger, a strike that should have been a goal. The kind of strike that you'd want to see hit the back of the net, but he didn't. So he hits the ball from outside the area, I think, and it goes and hits at the intersection of the between the crossbar and the upright, and the ball, because Seny Lomans was beaten and was already on the floor, the ball comes back into play, hits in the back of Seny Lomans, and goes out for a corner kick. So for those of you that do remember, in 2023-2024 campaign, when Arsenal were donning that black kit, when they went away to Villa Park against Aston Villa, I think they went to in that game where I think it was Oli Watkins who scored to give Aston Villa the lead. Then Bukayo Saka equalized. Then Philippe Coutinho scored to give Aston Villa the lead. Then I think in the second half, Alexander Zinchenko scored his first ever Premier League goal for the Arsenal to make it 2-2. And then at the tail end of the game, Jorginho hits that ball with a sumptuous strike. I think it was Gabriel Martinelli was laying that ball up for him. He hits that ball and it hits off the crossbar and into the back of Emi Martinez and ends up in the back of the net to give Arsenal a 3-2 lead at the time before before Gabriel Martinelli's last dagger that made it 4-2, scoring in an empty net. So that moment in itself of Alex Scott was a replica of that moment against between Jorginho and Emiliano Martinez. So you guys, you can go to your Google search or YouTube and try and find that moment between Jorginho and Emi Martinez for the 2023-2024 campaign. I think that's the season. Is it the season? I'd want to believe that's the season. Oh, yeah. So, but no, I think it was, maybe it's the 2022, 2023, around that period. Anyways, I could be mixing up the seasons, but we can always look it up when it comes to that. But that was the moment that I thought was identical to Alexis Scotty's moment with with Seni Lomans, even though that one did not culminate into a goal. So it was the 2022-2023 season, not 2023-2024. It was the 2022-2023 season, because that game was played on February 18th, 2023, that ended 4-2. With Arsenal winning that game. So really, anyways, and then so the ball doesn't go in. Manchester United retain their 2-1 lead, and but by that time, Bournemouth were really turning up the heat. And then of course we did have in the 80th minute, Harry Maguire decided to bring down Evan Nilsson with a pull, and he was the last line of defense. So he's just denied a clear and obvious goal scoring opportunity. He's given a straight red card. Stuart Atwell did not have even to think twice about it, and then he's sent off. Bournemouth awarded a penalty, for which Junior Kropi, who was just coming off of the bench, stepped up, sent Seni Lomans in the opposite direction, and it was 2-2. And that's how basically the game played out. Man United with a man less and never found a way through, while Seni Lomans had to stand tall in goal to deny Bournemouth at going away with all 3 points. So in the end, I think it was a perfect score prediction for us, going for the 2-2 draw, even though if there had to be a winner, we are tilted towards Man United. Of course, the thing about predictions is that one of the things you never envision are things like red cards. Usually that one you can never envision. It's penalties are penalties. That's okay for me. But the red card, you can never predict which opponent or which side is going to get a red card and what the implications of that red card will be in that game. So really, it becomes a bit difficult. But so now, before Harry Maguire is given a red card and a penalty awarded to Manchester United, Man United players had a penalty claim on the other side, on Brani Mbeumo. Sorry, not Brani Mbeumo, on Amadou Diallo. Now, Amadou Diallo, to be honest, I felt, or at the moment when I watched it, it felt like one of those kind of 50-50 decisions. Hi, Goodman. Hello to you too. How are you doing? Good morning. So at the time when it happened, and Harry Maguire's pull is as blatant, so he takes the man down. So for me, it's a clear penalty. There's no discussion over that. When it comes to the Amadou Diallo penalty, I've had the chance to watch the replays, and the defender does appear to impede Amadou Diallo with what appears to be a pull. But the referee, in his judgment, deems that was perhaps not sufficient for a penalty to be awarded. It's one of those subjective decisions for which, if a pen is not given, you're not going to crucify the referee. However, in quick succession, when a similar incident happens on the other side, and then you award the penalty in similar circumstances, even though I think that of Harry Maguire is more blatant, and him being the last man, I can't say I can understand on the referee's part, but I understand Manchester United fans, where they're coming from, because they do not feel identical, but the circumstances are similar. So if one is a penalty, why is the other not? That's the question, If one is a penalty, why is the other not? So that's the big question. However, two wrongs don't make a right, Two wrongs don't make a right. And that's the thing about football. Some decisions you get, some you do not get. Some go your way, others go against you, Goodman says, is me all right? So really, I did not think, by the way, that Stuart Atwell on the night was such a poor referee. No, I did not believe that. However, on the penalty incident, like I said, in my humble view, it is subjective, especially on Amadou Diallo. So, and I think if Harry Maguire does not do what he does on Evan Nilsson, we wouldn't be having this debate. First of all, because Man United would have stayed in that 2-1 lead, 2-1 lead at the time. Two, because the other one has a red card element to it that exacerbates the problem. Not that for Amadou Diallo, if a penalty had been were to be awarded, it would have come with the red card as well. That's not what I'm trying to say. But when you compare the two circumstances, both should be penalties. But like I said, in my opinion, that of Harry Maguire looks more blatant. Perhaps you would think or give credit to Evan Nilsson that the way he dives or the way he goes to the ground, sorry, not diving, the way he goes to the ground makes it more convincing to the referee than it does for Amadou Diallo. But of course, the basis for awarding a pen or not awarding it shouldn't be on how easily somebody goes down or how hard they go down. So I'll leave it at that. So the result meant that Manchester United still maintained their group on third place with now 4 points ahead of the likes of Aston Villa because it put them at 55 points. That's for Manchester United. In second place, Jesus Christ, do I still have to struggle with that? Anyways, it is what it is. So it came down to that. So points were shared. Man United will feel hard done by. It's been the nature of the season. I think all fans, or regardless of what team you belong to, there must be a moment where you felt hard done by the referee, where you felt that inconsistency that comes with English referees. It's not new. I really, really pray and hope that they try to cut it as much as they can. Hi, Liam. Good to have you back on the channel. I hope you're doing okay, Liam. So, really, for me, yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those officiating decisions that show an inconsistency in the judgment of the referees. Sometimes the same match official being at the end of it, while in the other case, it's different referees are making different calls for similar incidents. So yeah, basically that's what it is. Liam says, I have bad news. What's the bad news? Is everything okay with you? So anyways, that was that. So we'll park that to the side and go to the. Okay, I promised you. You say your mom has cancer. So sorry about that. Let's hope we pray she overcomes cancer. I do not know personally, one-on-one, people that have overcome it, but I've seen stories of people that have beaten cancer. So we pray that if that is the case, it goes well with your mom. So meanwhile, so the Premier League does continue today with the early kickoff between Brighton and Liverpool at 3:30 p.m. Fulham take on Burnley at 6 p.m. Everton at 8:30 p.m. will be up against Chelsea, while in the late kickoff it will be Leeds United against Brentford. So we did the previews for those respective games. That was Friday morning. On Friday morning, you said blood cancer, so I can't come here. I need to take care of my mom. All right, we wish you the very best as you take care of your mom. The very best, I mean, positive results in regards to her treatment and whatever she has to go through. So I'm trying to find out what the headline was for Friday morning so that I can guide you to that. Yes. Okay. All right. So the headline to that broadcast was Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, and Palace through because they are going through in their respective cup competitions in Europe, and then Neymar Wayne Rooney comparisons. So that's under that broadcast. That's when we did the previews for majority of those Premier League games. But then on Super Sunday at 3 p.m. we will have Newcastle play Sunderland. That's in the Trainware Derby. Aston Villa will take on West Ham United. Tottenham Hotspur will be up against Nottingham Forest. So before we get into the previews of that, I wanted us to get into the preview for the Carabao Cup final that also comes on Sunday at 7:30 p.m. And then we will revisit the Premier League games back a bit later, as well as the Madrid Derby. First and foremost, Mikel Arteta versus Pep Guardiola, the master versus the apprentice, the student and the master, whichever way you want to describe it. It's a very, very big occasion there in regards to being an opportunity for both managers to win a piece of silverware. Who wants it the most? I say Arsenal. Arsenal are the ones that have gone the longest without winning a piece of silverware. Their last coming in 2020 when they won the FA Cup, when they beat Chelsea in the finals by 2-1. Whereas they had beaten up against Manchester City in the semi-finals, leading to the final. Then we know for a fact that Pep Guardiola and his Manchester City side have nothing really to prove, as do Arsenal. Arsenal have everything there is to prove. It's been 6 years, going on to 7 years of that Arsenal project under Mikel Arteta, so it needs to start bearing fruit. And therefore, that's why I believe the onus is on Arsenal to do it all and win this, League Carabao Cup final. Then for the manager, Mikel Arteta, he's had 12 trips to the Etihad Stadium, both as a manager and as a player, and he's yet to lose any. So I do not know whether that becomes a factor, but it is a statement of fact that you ought to keep or bear in mind as you formulate your decision on that game, or your opinion or your prediction, So I thought that is a really, really interesting fact in terms of being there. Both managers, first of all, are in different spaces. At this time of the season, Arsenal still chasing the quadruple. That's 4 titles: the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Premier League, and the UEFA Champions League. Whereas Manchester City have exited the UEFA Champions League at the hands of Real Madrid, losing 5-1 on aggregate. Something that has brought questions on English Premier League football in comparison to the rest of Europe. Will perhaps okay, let's get to that briefly before digressing. So Ian Wright was speaking about that, and he said this, and I quote, because like I told you the other day, 4 Premier League teams conceded a combined total of 28 goals, reached the squad 11, and the highest goal scorers were Newcastle, who scored 5, reached the highest goal scorers were Tottenham Hotspur, who scored 5, released the conceded 7 against Atletico de Madrid over 2 legs. So Ian Wright he says on Premier League clubs, he says, I'm telling you, man, Premier League clubs are being dragged on the biggest stage. We keep hearing it's the best league in the world, the best product, but you look at these results: Chelsea getting schooled H2 by PSG, Newcastle being torn apart at the Camp Nou, and it's a massive reality check. There is so much work to do. We have become arrogant, thinking the money and the pace of our league is enough. But these European giants are showing us what real technical discipline looks like. It's embarrassing, man. It's a total schooling. So those are the views of Ian Wright in regards to the Premier League in the wake of that. So back to this Real Madrid thing. So Real Madrid shipped 5 over 2 legs, 3 at the Bernabeu and 2 at the Etihad Stadium. Newcastle shipped 8-3 on aggregate, but it was 7-2 at Camp Nou. Chelsea shipped 8 over 2 legs, 5-2 in Paris and 3-0 at Stamford Bridge. Newcastle shipped 5 in Spain, and they shipped 2 in the reverse fixture, which they managed to win by 3 goals to 2. So at the end of the day, the Premier League was left not painted in any form of glory whatsoever. So Pep Guardiola is going to be seeking recovering from that UEFA Champions League exit at the hands of Real Madrid, and hoping to pick his first piece of silverware, because he would want to avoid going another season without a trophy. And this is his earliest opportunity of asking, perhaps the most, I don't want to say the most obvious chance, because it's not obvious, but it's an opportunity for him. Of course, he remains in other three competitions. That's the FA and the Premier League, for which the Premier League, he knows he's a little bit of a disadvantage, being 9 points behind Arsenal. Really, they have a game in hand. So he knows that a little too well in terms of what this means for him and for his team, personally or practically. So, and Manchester City, in the wake of that, are really low on confidence, if we are being honest, compared to Arsenal, beaming with high spirits and confidence. We're talking about a Manchester City side who in the Premier League have drawn their last 2 games against Nottingham Forest and against West Ham United by 2 goals to 2 and 1-1 respectively. We're talking about a Manchester City side that have gone in the UEFA Champions League and lost home and away fixtures. So in other words, in their last 4 fixtures, they are still winless. We're talking about a Manchester City side who last won a game in the FA Cup when they beat Newcastle by 3 goals to 1. So they're low on confidence. It begs the question of how is Pep Guardiola going to go about this game? Is he going to behave in a conservative manner like he did in the Premier League first leg when he went to the Emirates Stadium? When Brad Erling Haaland, I think through a string of 1, 2, 3 passes, went on and scored, and it was 1-0 to Manchester City, and they decided to sit back and defend for the rest of the game. At one point, they had 7 defenders on the pitch until Gabriel Martinelli scored that equalizer very late on in the game, with Eberechi Eze providing the assist. Is he going to behave that way? Is he going to be a bit more? Is he going to take a big risk and behave the way he behaved at the Bernabeu and put more attackers on the pitch, as opposed to being to have a conservative sort of midfield? Because at the Bernabeu, he went with a single pivot of Rodri. Then in addition to that, he had the Bernardo Silva, and then he decided to add on a Savinho. So it's a very, very big question that we are waiting to hear. As of yesterday, we got reports that he told the media that he will be starting James Trafford in goal. Really, when Mikel Arteta was asked, he was a bit coy about that. He said, we'll assess both players and see. He was being asked whether it's going to be Raya or Kepa Arrizabalaga. So he gave nothing away. Now, I, for one, in the preview, for those of you that have watched the Carabao Cup final preview on the channel, that's at Football Tribe UG. If you haven't, please go over and watch it. I did say if I were Mikel Arteta, I would feel David Raya, because he is the number 1 goalkeeper, and there is a reason for that. But as we edge closer to the final, I'm increasingly feeling like he's going to start Kepa Arrizabalaga. Not that I did not have the same school of thought prior, but I think as the time goes by, it's beginning to sink deeper and deeper that he's going to cope with Kepa Arrizabalaga in that sort of sense. Because we know he's been the goalkeeper in these cup competitions, both in the FA Cup and the EFL Cup. So there's that expectation. Then also, so on the other side, we thought, Pep Guardiola is going to have a bit of a headache. Is it James Trafford? Is it Gianluigi Donnarumma? But it looks like he's told the rest of the world it's going to be James Trafford, unless otherwise something happens. So they sat. Then, between the two managers, in Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola, they met 15 times. Pep Guardiola has won the fixture 8 times. Mikel Arteta has won it 4 times. Really, there's been 3 draws. Those draws coming, 2 of them coming at the Etihad Stadium in the Premier League, a goalless draw in the 2023-2024 Premier League season, and a 2-all draw in the 2024-2025 Premier League season. Really, this season, there was a 1-all draw at the Emirates Stadium. In the 4 occasions that Arsenal beaten him, 2 of them were in the Premier League at the Emirates Stadium. 2023-2024, they won that fixture by a 1-0. Gabriel Martinelli in the, I think, 84th or 86th minute. Then last season, they managed to beat Manchester City 5-1 at the Emirates Stadium. For those of you that remember, Lewis Kelly among the goal scorers, Kai Havertz among the goal scorers in that one. So they sat. Then The other victory for Arsenal against Manchester City came in the semi-finals of the FA Cup in 2020 by 2 goals to nil, and that came just a couple of months, if not weeks, after Arsenal had lost to the same side by 3 goals to nil in the Premier League. So they beat Man City by 2 goals to nil. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scoring the both goals. I think Nicolas Pepe provided one of the assists. Then in the 2023 Community Shield, prior to the start of the 2023-2024 Premier League season, Manchester City lost to Arsenal 4-1 on penalties. That proceeded a 1-all draw in normal time, with Cole Palmer scoring for Manchester City, while Leandro Trossard scored to restore parity for the Gunners. Mwesqua Joshua says, conservative manner, this time we beat him. Since rumors say his key defenders are injured, however, if Arteta overthinks it, an easy win could become complicated. Both managers, by the way, are very capable and prone to overthinking games. But for Manchester City, Mark Gahey is not eligible to feature in this game because he's cap-tied, having featured for AFC Bournemouth. Antoine Semenyo is going to be available, so there's no cap-ties there. Arsenal had similar challenges with the goalkeeper Neto, who was on loan from AFC Bournemouth last season. He could hardly play in any cup competition, because he was cap-tied, particularly in the EFL Cup. And then, of course, Arsenal got knocked out in the FA Cup at the first time of asking at the hands of Manchester United on post-match penalties that proceeded a 1-all draw. So, really, that's the context of it. So you can see that in the last 6 fixtures, Pep Guardiola has not won a game against his student in Mikel Arteta. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing for Mikel Arteta and not so good a thing for Pep Guardiola. But if there is a manager that you can call up to mastermind a victory against Arsenal, Pep Guardiola must be one of those that you bring with all his experiences. He's into the 19th year of his coaching career. 18 trophies with Manchester City. I mean, we cannot compare him to his student in Mikel Arteta. They're miles apart. So, but nonetheless, like I said, Arsenal beaming with confidence. First of all, they are into the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. They drew one and won the other. In the Premier League, they've been winning 2-0 against Everton in their last outing, while prior to that, they had beaten up against Brighton by 1-0. So they have confidence on their side. In the FA Cup, they knocked out Mansfield to advance to the quarterfinals, to where they will be playing Southampton. That will be after the international break. While, Pep Guardiola's Manchester City will be up against Liverpool in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. So, in other words, I mean, it's just a good place to be in. The last time Arsenal lost a game was against Manchester United earlier on. And you can see that they do not lose so many games. They've only lost 3. And that is against Man United, against Aston Villa, and against Liverpool, with that Wilder of a free kick from Dominic Szoboszlai. So, I feel that there's reason to believe that Arsenal could edge this one. And Arsenal as a team do sort of have a fairly good record going to Wembley Stadium. It's a place that they often go and win. They often go and win, whether it's been the Community Shield, whether it's been the FA Cup. It's a place they know how to go and win. We shall be hoping that they do carry with them the same sort of luck going into the final. In terms of key battles, it's going to be Brad Erling Haaland versus those 2 Arsenal centre-backs in Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba. I do suspect Pierre Hincapié could start at left back, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he decided to go with Riccardo Carafiori. We are hearing reports that Juan Timber could be in contention to be in the matchday squad, having been taken off before halftime in their 2-0 victory against Everton. And then, so if he's available to start, does he start at right back, or do you throw in Ben White? So all those are questions that we are waiting for managers to answer tomorrow when those starting 11s come out. Manchester City, Tijan Reinders, Bernardo Silva. I think it will be Rodri, Bernardo Silva, and Ryan Cherki in that sort of midfield. Then Antoine Semenyo, Jeremy Doku, and Brad Erling Haaland. That's how I think they could set up in terms of their front lines. Backline, James Trafford, let's say in goal. Matthias Nunes at right back. Kushanov alongside Ruben Diaz alongside Stones. And then left back. Ryan Ashnory, so they could sort of set up in that style. And that's a team strong enough, especially with the firepower of Jeremy Doku, Semenyo, Haaland, and Cherki. Even though they're not in the best of form, particularly for Brad Erling Haaland, you can never write him off. He's such a good player. You can never write him off. So I think those are some of the things that you need to know. En route to the final, Arsenal knocked out teams like Chelsea at the semi-finals, so they beat home and away by 3-2 and a goal to nil. Then they knocked out Crystal Palace on penalties. Then they knocked out Brighton, beating them by 2-0. Whereas Manchester City knocked out Swansea, Brentford. They beat Swansea by 3-1, Brentford by 2-0, and beat Newcastle home and away by 3-1 in the reverse fixture that preceded a 2-0 victory at St. James's Park. So it's thereabouts. So for Arsenal, if let's say it's Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal, Guillaume Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, Hincapié, Ben White, Rice, Subimendi, Eze, Trossard, Saka, Kai Havertz, you feel that it's the kind of game where somebody needs to produce a moment, a standout moment. If any of these sides are to win, for Arsenal, you'd ask Ebelechi Eze to come up with that moment, maybe Leandro Trossard or Bukayo Saka to come up with that moment. On the side of Man City, you'd ask that of Brad Erling Haaland, you'd ask that of Antoine Semenyo, or Ryan Cherki to come up with a moment, really, and win this piece of silverware. I was watching an interview for Bukayo Saka, and he said, if we win it, it means a lot to our confidence, but also if we do not win it, no, I think it was David Raya. If we do not win it, we cannot, wallow in our pity and say we missed that and blah, blah, blah. We just have to carry on, because then that means we still have all the other three competitions to fight for. So regardless of how it finishes, Bukayo Saka was being interviewed by Paul Mason, and he was asking him, are you under pressure because it's a final? So I try not to think about it. It's just another big game that we have to go through. And then he asks him about, being an academic graduate, being a star boy. Does he feel the responsibilities on his shoulders to go and try and win this game for the Arsenal and bring silverware to the club? And he said, yeah, when you think about it that way, the nerves start to kick in, but he tries as much as he can to block all that out. So there's a lot at stake for this Arsenal side. For me, Arsenal need to win it. Manchester City want to win it. Man City won it on 4 consecutive years in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So 2018, they beat Arsenal 3-0 in the final. Sergio Kun Aguero, Vincent Kompany, and David Silva. In 2019, they beat Chelsea on penalties. In 2020, they beat Aston Villa 2-1. In 2021, they beat Tottenham Hotspur by 1-0 because they had chosen to sack Jose Mourinho prior to the cup final. So really, it's basically that. It's basically that. That's the content. Meanwhile, Arsenal on the other side have not won their last 3 Carabao Cup finals at Wembley. You remember in 2007, they lost to Man City by 2-1. Subsequently, in 2011, they lost to Birmingham City by 2-1. And then in 2018, when they lost to Manchester City by 3-0. So really, that's been their trajectory in the Carabao Cup or Carling Cup or EFL Cup, English Football League Cup. The last time they won it was back in 1993 when they beat Sheffield Wednesday by 2-1. So in other words, Arsene Wenger as a manager never won that competition. Not at all. Not one single time. So You know, it, it's up to Mikel Arteta to break the jinx, to break that curse of Arsenal not winning the Carabao Cup. So, and for them, I've already said this: for Arsenal to build a winning culture, they have to start somewhere, and there's no better thing than starting small and starting somewhere really. So, and then you advance on. So we'll wait to see whether the apprentice will get the better of the master, or the master is too experienced that his own student cannot do a number on him. So that's the Carabao Cup final preview. Give me your predictions. My prediction is the 2-1 victory for the Arsenal in normal time. So let me know what your views are in that regard. So and then we'll hear them. So yeah, it's a 55-year-old Pep Guardiola versus a 43-year-old Mikel Arteta, who only has one trophy to his cabinet. Really, Pep Guardiola has as many as 39. So, like I said, the scale, the weighing scale cannot balance with such statistics. Then also, let's move on from the Carabao Cup final. Kobbie Mainoo and Harry Maguire are set to reach agreements over new contracts with Manchester United. The 20-year-old Kobbie Mainoo is being given a 5-year contract with improved terms. Really, Harry Maguire is being given a 1-year contract with an option to extend it. So looks like there may be no pay bump for Harry Maguire. Both players have been summoned to the England national team ahead of their club friendlies against Japan and Uruguay. So and some players will be rested. They will miss the Uruguay friendly and will feature in the one of Japan players like Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, Morgan Rogers, Elliot Anderson, Dean Henderson. In terms of it's all to do with load management in that regard. So quickly, let's move on to the Premier League's Super Sunday. Before we move on, Ernesto Valverde at Athletic Bilbao did announce he will be leaving the club at the end of the season, and that's why Athletic Bilbao are turning their attentions to FC Bournemouth's Andoni Iraola, whose contract runs out at the end of the season, and he was, like I said, he's a former Athletic Bilbao player. There's a feeling that the job is too appealing for him, and although there was rumors starting to circulate that he was bound to sign a new contract with FC Bournemouth, that there was a positive feeling that he could commit his future to the club. Now that changes everything. So, we'll have to let it be. Moving on to Newcastle against Sunderland. Like I said, Sunderland won the Trainware Derby by a 1-0 in the first leg at the Stadium of Light. They did win that fixture. So there's not been too many meetings in the Premier League between these two sides in Sunderland and Newcastle. There's only been 29, and 10 have ended in draws. 10 have been won by Sunderland, while Newcastle have won it 9 times. When you look at their last 5 meetings, Sunderland have won this fixture on 4 different occasions, thrice being at home and once being away from home. Really, there's been 1 draw only. So you can see where this is going. But nonetheless, a derby is a derby. I think excuse me. Newcastle are supposed to be plotting their revenge following that first leg defeat, but Newcastle have proved to be very, very inconsistent this season. So they are very unreliable. Look at how poor they've been, because they've lost literally all the. Sorry, they haven't lost all, but they've been poor in the season. They've lost to Man City, they lost to Everton, but they managed to beat Chelsea, they beat Man United and Tottenham Hotspur. They've won 3 of their last 5. That's something really positive for Ed Howe to sort of clutch onto, bearing in mind that his job could be at risk. Then Sunderland on the other side have lost, I think, what, two? Yeah. No, they've lost three in the last five, losing to Liverpool by goal to nil. They lost West Ham by 3 goals to 1. Their last league outing, they lost to Brighton by goal to nil. While really in between, there's a 1-1 draw against Bournemouth and a 1-0 victory against Liverpool. So, sorry, against Leeds, not Liverpool. Sunderland beat Leeds by goal to nil. That penalty from Habib Diarra. It's a difficult game, but I'm going to go for a draw in that one. I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I have a feeling that Sunderland will grind it out, even though they'll come under enormous pressure from his side of the story or the coin. So really, for me, the key battles should be in midfield: Granit Xhaka, Noah Sadiki versus Sandro Tonali. Meanwhile, Sandro Tonali went off with an injury in their humiliation against Barcelona, Atletico de Madrid. Diego Simeone wasn't there. So really, it becomes a lot. So I think it will be maybe Joe Wellington, Morgan Rogers, and Joe Willock in that midfield, because they managed to beat Chelsea with a very lightweight sort of midfield. One that I must say are not seen coming. Jesus Christ, the way I'm feeling hot this morning. You may think my windows are closed, and yet they are very open. Anyways, so I'll go for a draw in that one. Then quickly, the other two games, Aston Villa, West Ham. Aston Villa really, really need to redeem their season. They've had a very, very poor run of form in recent times, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So they really, really need a result. They've lost their last 3 consecutive games. Aston Villa losing to Man United 3-1, losing to Chelsea 4-1, and losing to Wolverhampton Wanderers by 2-0. So you can see that trajectory of results. Whereas they won against Brighton and drew against Leeds. So only 4 points from their last possible 15. That's not good. That means they've lost 11. West Ham, on the other hand, have drawn 3 of the last 5. They've won 1 against Fulham, and they lost 1 against Liverpool. So a worthy opponent. West Ham have been playing by the really, really well in recent times, while Aston Villa, have been far from convincing. It's in the UEFA Europa League where they've turned up, because they managed to beat Lille home and away by goal to nil and 2-0 in the reverse fixture. The first leg ended 3-2 in favor of Aston Villa. For those of you that remember, that Aston Villa side that were beaming with confidence, that had a run of 13 games unbeaten and things like that. But you'll find 1-1 all draws very possible, whether at home or away from home, 2-1 victories and a 4-1 summary. So this game, I don't know if Somerville will be back, but Aston Villa are suffering from low confidence in as far as things go. So if I were to predict this game, I'm going to go for 1-1 draw. Still, that Nottingham Forest Tottenham Hotspur versus Nottingham Forest. That is the relegation derby. In that relegation derby, you think of it, and both teams won in midweek. Nottingham Forest beat Midtjylland 2-1 to force the game to go into penalties, and they eventually won 3-0 on penalties and advanced to the quarterfinals, where they're going to play a very difficult FC Porto. In fact, I can sit here and almost predict that FC Porto over 2 legs will knock out Nottingham Forest. Then okay, cool. Hi Mitra, you've written your comment in Hindi. Is that Hindi? Anyway, so Nottingham Forest on the other side have lost 4 of their last 5 games, and then they drew 1-1 against Liverpool. I did not see that result coming, but they've lost to Newcastle, to Arsenal, to Fulham, to Crystal Palace. You know, they need to paint a better picture of their quality in the squad. That's for Tottenham Hotspurs. It's going to be close to a relegation battle because Tottenham are 16th, Nottingham Forest are 17th on the Premier League log. Only a point, I think, separates the two sides. So if it's only a point separating the two sides, whoever wins it will have higher chances of staying up. I saw Tottenham have a better performance against Atletico de Madrid in midweek. I did not watch the Forest game. I could only catch the highlights. But one thing I can assure you is that they are possibly they will fight better in this one, although their home record is really, really poor. I think they've only won 2 games at home. Is Igor Tudor going to be able to change that? Only time will tell. That's on Super Sunday between Nottingham Forest and Tottenham Hotspurs. So big game when it comes to the relegation battle. Neither team will want to lose, but you do suspect that at the end of the day, there can only be one winner. And I don't know. I feel with Salt being involved, Tottenham could win this one by 2-1. Because Nottingham Forest on the other side have not painted themselves in much glory. Vitor Pereira has won, I think, 2 or 3 of his games in charge, because they drew 2-2 against Man City before drawing 0-0 against Fulham. Prior to that, they had lost to Brighton 2-1 and Liverpool 1-0. And then before it all, you had the goalless draw against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So, I mean, it's there. I've told you what Tottenham's form looks like. Lost 4 of the last 5. They've been shambolic. But that Liverpool result gave them a little bit of confidence. I'd want to think that they went on to share their views online. So, yeah. Okay, guys, quickly. Jesus Christ. Quickly, the Madrid derby, because that will wrap up the Premier League action from match day 31. Arsenal and Man City not in action, and nor is Crystal Palace. Who else won't be playing this weekend? Oh, yeah, Wolves. Wolves are not playing this weekend because that game they were supposed to play against Arsenal on match day 31 was already played. We know how it ended in a 2-2 draw. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the Madrid derby. Big game. Both teams very capable of winning the game. I just feel like Atletico de Madrid conceded too many goals, and that's made it really, really difficult for them. In the Spanish La Liga, Kylian Mbappe leads the way with 23 goals. Muriqi from Mallorca has 18 goals, while Lamine Yamal has 14 goals at Barcelona. When it comes to Moscow squad, you find Barcelona have scored 77, Real Madrid have scored 60. That's 17 more for Barcelona than Madrid have scored. And then 54 goals for Villarreal. You know, those are some of the key facts. But in terms of the Madrid derby itself, I mean, it's a huge game. It's a humongous game, really, that will be played on Super Sunday. That's at the 22nd. So, both teams have a couple of injuries. Jan Oblak for Atletico de Madrid, Pablo Barrios, Rodrigo Mendoza. On the other side, Real Madrid have Rodrigo Goes, Dani Ceballos, Falan Mendy, Thibaut Courtois, Raul Asensio, Eder Militao. All those have joined the Real Madrid sick bay party. We know that Atletico de Madrid thrashed Real Madrid by 5 goals to 2 in the first leg. So Real Madrid will be plotting their revenge against their arch nemesis of neighbors in Atletico de Madrid. So, earlier, sorry, in the French Super Cup, Real Madrid managed to overcome Atletico, beating them by 2 goals to 1. While prior to that, prior to all those two games, we had a Real Madrid advance on aggregate score after a 2-1 victory at the Santiago Bernabeu, while the reverse fixture ended in a 2-1. Ended in a 1 victory. So you can see that. So if you Alvaro Arbeloa, you're more or less going to bring the same team. Andre Lunin in goal, Trent Alexander Arnold at right back, Antonio Rudiger alongside Dean Hansen. Then you'll have maybe Fran Garcia or Alvaro Carreras. Then midfield, you go with Chouameni, Thiago Pina, Bruno Guimaraes, and I don't know. What's the other player? Maybe Camavinga, maybe Jude Bellingham, who is returned from injury. So you have that. Then at the forefront of it, it will be Brahim Diaz and Vinicius Junior. I don't think Kylian Mbappe will be risked to start. He could start, but I think he'll come off the bench. Then Atletico de Madrid on the other side, you have Mosso. That's the substitute goalkeeper for Jan Oblak. You do have Matteo Ruggeri at left back. You do have David Henko, etc. You do have players like Julian Alvarez up front, Alexander Soloth, Anton Griezmann, that midfield of John Cardoso, Koke. You have Ryan Chucky being checked on in there and things like that. So it does promise to be. Sorry, not Ryan Chucky. Sorry for the slip of the tongue there. You have Giuliano Simeone, Marcos Llorente. All these are players that are really, really capable of popping up with the results. I think Penema is looking for was Alex Bainer, not Ryan Chucky. Ryan Chucky is at Manchester City. Anyways, so I feel Real Madrid, both teams will score, first of all, for those of you that want to bet. But I think Real Madrid could edge this one by 2 goals to 1. I feel that Atletico Madrid looked even very, very uncomfortable. The performance was far from convincing as they lost to Tottenham Hotspurs, So you felt something was lacking in that performance. Is it good news? Okay. Oh, that's the translation of Mitra's comment. Is the news good? What news? So yeah, for me, as a Real Madrid fan, I'll go Real Madrid to win 2-1 in that fixture. So those are some of the games that will be coming your way. In the French League One, on Super Sunday, there's going to be some interesting fixtures. On Super Sunday, there's a game between Marseille and Lille, and then there's a game between Monaco and Lyon. So for those of you that have time, you can check out those games. The game between Marseille and Lille will come at 7:15 p.m. For us to be gearing up for the Carabao Cup final. Then the game between Lyon and Monaco will come at 5 p.m. So do not miss out on that in case you're interested in catching those big games from the French League One. Anyways, what have I not touched upon? Okay. Manchester City. Manchester City, are advancing on talks on agent side for Nottingham Forest's Elliot Anderson. We know for a fact that Manchester United are really, really interested in the services of the English midfielder, but Man City seem to be putting their head out in the lead to that race. Then we also know that Tottenham goalkeeper, after the game against Nottingham Forest, will undergo a hernia surgery. Then Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes reports suggest that they want to leave Newcastle in the summer, according to Ben Jacobs, and that Manchester United are interested in signing Bruno Guimaraes, who could cost about £69 million. Then Sandro Tonali is a player that they do like. That's Manchester United, but has also been linked with the potential move to Arsenal. We did hear reports in January that via his agents, he had been offered to the Gunners to sign him. I think if you take out that duo, or if you take them out of Newcastle's midfield, that would be such a huge hole in that Newcastle side, especially whose project has not advanced that much. Last season, they won a cup competition. They won the Carabao Cup, beating Liverpool 2-1 in the final. We thought they would improve on that. It's not been the case. They cannot directly qualify for Europe. They're out of the FA. They are not in the Carabao Cup. They're just out of it, So they've not been the same entirely. And this is what I said. Upon the exit of Alexander Isak, is that when you have a player like Alexander Isak leave, who was Newcastle's best player last season by a mile, subsequently, these kinds of players like Bruno Guimaraes, Sandro Tonali are going to want to leave. The likes of Tino Livramento at the right back, Lewis Hall is going to be targeted by some of the big sides, And I'm thinking if you're Man United, given how advanced and unreliable Luke Shaw can be in terms of being unavailable by this season, this is the kind of player that you can look at. Lewis Hall looks really, really brilliant. So you can see how holes can be. Manchester City, we know, are interested in Tino Livramento. So you can see how Newcastle could be raided. We know that Liverpool and Arsenal appreciate Anthony Gordon. I think he's their highest goal scorer this season, has about 15 goals or so across all competitions. He's not a player I appreciate that great deal, but he's okay. He's an okay player, So, and the last thing, because that's the spine of Newcastle, that midfield, Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali, then Lewis Hall, youngster that everybody is beaming apart. He's been somewhat to the England national team, Really, I think you can see where Newcastle stand with this. Eddie Howe's future is not guaranteed. The question marks all over it are given the results from recent weeks and their overall performance in the Premier League. So there's that. So then I told you that I told you about Ernesto Valverde. He did announce that he will be leaving Athletic Bilbao at the end of the season. That's why Bilbao want Andoni Iraola to return as a new manager. He did play more than 400 games for them. So Bournemouth were growing positive about him renewing his contract. This sort of interest from his former club in Bilbao could be quite tempting for him to leave Bournemouth behind and join the other side of the aisle of the competition. So then Real Madrid are going to be without Thibaut Courtois for quite some time because of that muscular injury. So chances are he may not be available for the double header against FC Bayern Munich in the UEFA Champions League. That's going to be a humongous game. Real Madrid have all the pedigree against Bayern Munich. Can Bayern Munich upset the balance of scale of that pedigree and history? So we will be waiting to see how things will play out. In as far as things go, really. So do let me know what your thoughts are on the Carabao Cup final, on Manchester United. Do you think they were robbed? On the Madrid derby, what's your prediction? Real Madrid are going to be at home at the Santiago Bernabeu, and everything we've discussed in the course of this broadcast. Otherwise, I want to wish you a wonderful weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy all that football. We'll be back tonight after the let's kick off. I think there's this game that we're supposed to be watching at 11 p.m. on Saturday night. There's a game between Paris Saint-Germain and Nice in France at 10:45 p.m. I think. So Leeds against Brentford coming at 11 p.m. So we'll be here to discuss all that and more. Otherwise, have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.